In 2004, the manga Binchotan won the grand prize at the Japan Otaku Awards. The Japan Otaku Awards is a special event intended to recognize and archive the trends and development of each year in otaku culture. What's super unique about the event is that contestants don't belong to any specific genre other than falling under the umbrella of otaku culture. For example, the winner of the first event in 2001 was the 9th Crayon Shinchan movie, Crayon Shinchan, The Storm Called, The Adult Empire Strikes Back. Makes sense, Crayon Shinchan is one of the most well-recognized anime of all time, and the movie went on to achieve both critical acclaim as well as box office success. It's even considered one of the best Japanese films of all time by the oldest Japanese film magazine, Kinejun. But the winner for 2002 jumps all the way from an anime movie to a company, that being Kyoto, one of the early developers of the now immensely successful anime figure industry. 2007 was video posting websites, represented by Nico Nico Doga, and 2002 was Satoshi, or as we call him here in the States, Ash, becoming world champion in the Pokemon anime. As foreign fans, we can easily understand these types of winners. Most of us have a sense of just how popular Crayon Shinchan is in Japan. Most of us have at least seen a Kyoto figure or two, although you may not know exactly how innovative they were in the industry. I'll be telling that story another time. Video sharing platforms have been immensely significant in the growth of both technology and online culture. And literally everyone knows Pokemon. But Binchotan? The very manga given the award was never released in English, and I couldn't find a single American release for the 12-minute, 12-episode anime adaptation. Although it did receive an English dub, kudos to Animax Asia, a company that dubs in English but broadcasts to Asian countries, including the Philippines and Taiwan. If you're an overseas anime fan and familiar with Binchotan, you're probably either an old head or you have a special penchant for old 2000s moe shows. All that to say, you're probably wondering just what was so special about this Binchotan to justify an entire award, especially one with such a wide scale. So today I'm here to tell you that Binchotan's award was spot on, and that you're actually feeling the effects of it to this day, most likely without even realizing it. To address this topic, we must first begin with what came before Binchotan. Anthropomorphism was a popular concept beginning from the early days of CG design. In 2008, SoftBank released a book compiling a variety of works from CG artists online. Amongst them was the popular iMac Girl, created by artist Satoshi Igarashi, one of the very first examples of putting the moe in moe anthropomorphism. For the sake of clarity, let's set some definitions. Anthropomorphism refers to creating a portrayal of a non-human entity as human, through attribution of characteristics or traits. We can compare this to personification, which also refers to the attribution of human traits to non-humans, but there is a difference. Anthropomorphism creates an entirely new depiction. For example, a talking cat that goes to work and has a family. Whereas personification is more of a literary device in which these feelings are projected onto the non-human. For example, creating a fictional personality for your computer in your head, whilst in real life it's still just a machine. The Japanese word gijinka, while it can mean either, more commonly translates to personification, whereas in regards to the specific topic, anthropomorphism is generally a more accurate translation, and I'll be using it going forward. As for the word moe, it's more complicated than you may think, definitely enough to garner enough information for a video all its own. If you're already familiar, this will definitely be easier to understand. Now, for the sake of brevity, the best definition is a feeling of burning passion, of affection that arises within otaku when met with what is most often, especially in the 2000s, a cute female character. Moe points are preferences that vary from person to person. For instance, one person may find glasses particularly cute, while another may have a penchant for cat ears. Moe characters are typically characterized by large eyes, a small stature, and gimmicky designs, such as maid outfits or animal ears. Now, in 2001, a thread was posted on Japanese image board 2chan, titled, "Internet Explorer Stop button looks like a mushroom and it's bothering me." Users on the thread created Shiitake-chan, making the mushroom-looking button into an anime girl. Shiitake-chan served as the catalyst that began the storm, as internet users became addicted to creating moe anthropomorphized characters. In 2002, Biscuit-tan was created in the thread, "KFC biscuits are delicious." In 2003, internet users began creating OS-tans on Futaba channel, an offshoot of 2chan. First, Emi-tan was introduced. based on Windows ME. Users of Futaba channel likened its unstable nature to that of a ditzy girl, and thus ME-tan was born. Further characters would likewise emerge, including 2K-tan and 95-tan. These characters all exist within a fictional setting, a manga called Troubled Windows, created by fictional mangaka Futaba Toshiaki. Fictional anime and games also exist within the universe. Similarly, OS idol Win-chan is a similar but different character created by Yoshizaki Mine, existing outside the world of OS tans. With regards to copyright and ownership, it varies depending on the character. For OS tans, many of them have individually identified owners, who own the rights to their creations. On the other hand, a lot of these characters, such as Biscuit-tan, are created by anonymous image board users and exist within the public domain. The creation of these characters and culture caught the eye of Japanese computer magazine Netrunner. Netrunner created a promotional OVA featuring a variety of characters, including Biscuit-tan and Habanero-tan, a mascot of Bokkun habanero chips. They would then proceed to produce minifigures of these characters to package alongside their magazines, also including Foxco for the browser Firefox and Mixitan for the Japanese social media site. Netrunner's use of these characters would create controversy. They also profited off the images of these community creations, including a particularly controversial case in which they used Biscuit-tan in a special magazine, specifically promoting illegal downloading software. The magazine itself had a bad reputation on image boards for promoting downloading software that would cause their service to crash. In response, users of Futaba channel created Okotowari-chan, a cute character specifically created to tell Netrunner to go away. Netrunner staff did not listen, proceeding to use ME-tan in a further issue without permission. When an official fanbook for OS tans released, a disclaimer was placed on the cover, stating no Netrunners allowed. And now, back to the initial topic. You do remember that we were talking about Binchotan, right? Binchotan introduces us to the daily life of this cute girl, the titular Binchotan, as she works hard to support herself all alone in her house in the mountains. Binchotan must commute to the city regularly to pick up odd jobs to support herself. Whoa there, nobody warned me that this was a horror anime. It's there that Binchotan meets friends. Chikutan, meaning bamboo charcoal, is a cheerful girl who's obsessed with creating new inventions. Her younger sister, Chikurin, meaning bamboo grove, gleefully supports her efforts. Kunagi is a high-class rich girl who lives in a mansion. Her name means charcoal from a sawtooth oak tree. Ren-tan lives in a Buddhist temple and has a strong connection to spirits. Her name refers to charcoal briquette. Aloe, this one is obvious, is an average girl who loves swimming, although it doesn't always work out. Although she has minimal interaction with Binchotan, especially in the anime. Finally, Binchotan herself is the anthropomorphism of a specific type of charcoal used for cooking. The anime is frequently described as being quite sad, as Binchotan is often subject to unfortunate circumstances. Still, it's very cute to see her make friends and become less lonely and isolated. The premise for the series originated as an in-joke amongst employees at Alchemist, a Japanese company specializing in selling character goods and video games. When you say tan, you mean the charcoal, right? Referring to the word tan being both baby talk for the affectionate suffix chan, as well as the pronunciation for the character for charcoal, which is pronounced sumi on its own, and the word binchotan, referring to the aforementioned cooking charcoal. The suffix tan is often used on the internet when speaking of a cute moe character. The joke was depicted within a doodle published on the Alchemist website, drawn by artist Takahito Ikusa, and thus Binchotan was born. Half a year later, the first 4-panel comic depicting Binchotan would be published in Bichoujo magazine Megami in the character catch-up section. Binchotan began serialization in the small corner of the magazine, but word of mouth spread and garnered the unassuming comic unexpected popularity, and Binchotan would later expand to a 2-page spread in future issues. In June of 2005, Binchotan would transition serialization to Monthly Comic Blade, a manga magazine, beginning with redrawn versions of the comics thus far. Naturally, its run in Megami came to a close the following month of July, but it was so popular that its fan page continued to run in the magazine for over an entire year after the fact. The following year, Binchotan was adapted into a TV anime, produced by Studio Dean and airing on TBS and BSI from February to March. The manga would continue for 3 years in Comic Blade, eventually ending its run in November of 2008, citing Ekusa's busy schedule. However, Ekusa himself would continue the comic independently through doujin publications sold at Comiket. The second arc is referred to as the school arc, whereas the original run was classified as the grandma arc, referring to Binchotan's beloved grandmother, who made her clothes for her. So, why did something so humble win the Otaku Awards? In truth, Binchotan represented something bigger than itself. What made Binchotan so innovative was the concept of taking an inanimate object and turning it into a moe 2D girl. The win represented Binchotan's role as one of the forerunners of the moe anthropomorphism boom that would take otaku and later the larger internet by storm. Likewise, while the story of Binchotan was relatively short-lived in comparison to other formative anime and manga, the era of moe anthropomorphism was only just taking off. Researcher Ito Yu from the Kyoto International Manga Museum postulates that Binchotan marked the beginning of a new age of anthropomorphism, shifting away from giving an item human traits and shifting towards giving said item a humanoid form, shedding the previous one. Likewise, in the years following, more similarly anthropomorphized anime girls would emerge. First of all, think of all the opportunities with words already ending with tan. Like the country Afghanistan. They wouldn't, would they? Oh no. Manga artist Chima King created the 4-panel webcomic Afghanistan, based on the Japanese pronunciation Afghanistan, in which the modern history of the titular Afghanistan is depicted via moe anthropomorphism. Other characters include Pakistan and Uzbekistan, as well as Al-Nyaida, a pun using the Japanese word for meow as well as the obvious. As such, reviews were fairly mixed. 4 stars, recommended for new members of the workforce. An effective educational book about the Middle East situation that can be read in 15 minutes. 2 stars, there's not enough moe. 3 stars, a unique attempt. If you actually walk around Kabul or Kandahar, you will hardly see any girls like those in the book, but only bearded old men, so be aware of this gap. The manga became popular online, naturally in part due to its controversial nature. It was later announced that Chima King was partnering with company Sansai Books in order to release the manga in physical form. However, around the same time, Chima King's computer fell prey to a virus transmitted on the then popular Japanese file sharing software. A topic of yet another upcoming video. Literally all my video topics are connected to each other, I swear. Called Winnie. While the explicit details of this particular virus will be covered directly in the related video, basically what it does is locate and share the victim's data without their permission or knowledge, uploading it to the network of other users of the program Winnie to download themselves. In this particular case, over 100 megabytes of data were uploaded from Chima King's computer for all to see, including pirated eroge and anisongs. It's important to note that the topic of piracy, or illegal downloading, is viewed much differently in Japan than in places like America. This caused a significant controversy for the author, with one blogger writing, "A person who is going to earn money from royalties is downloading someone else's commercial magazine with Winnie and not paying. With this, he is in no position to ask people to buy my book." As a result, Chima King proceeded to delete links from his website, providing no future updates, and canceling an appearance at Comiket. Following several delays, the physical copy of Afghanistan was finally released in late July of 2005. In 2008, a sequel, Pakistan, released, and to my knowledge, that was the last we ever heard from Chima King. As the trend became more and more popular, companies would proceed to cash in with their own IPs. Around this time, a lot of artists would make the move to sites such as Pixiv and Twitter, so the overall culture of anthropomorphism became more that of individual projects, as opposed to group efforts by anons on image boards. In 2005, figure company Wave would release the Angel XX series, personifying the angels from Evangelion in chibi moe form. The designs, with the exception of Tabrist XX, are based on the appearance of Rei Ayanami, and designed by renowned artist Mine Yoshizaki. The official description reads as follows. In 2005, humanity used the Evangelion, a general-purpose humanoid decisive battle weapon, as a countermeasure against the approaching threat of the angels. However, NERF was preparing for any eventuality, and was also conducting new research using the samples of the angels that had been recovered. This was the XX project. Similarly, Combat Fairy Yukikaze, or Sento Yosei Yukikaze, originated as a science fiction novel written by Chohei Kanabayashi. It was subsequently adapted into OVA form, beginning in 2002. The story follows the incredibly talented yet antisocial lieutenant, Rei Fukai, a pilot fighting a war against an alien race known as Jam on their home planet known as Fairy or Yosei. In 2005, Studio Fantasia released a spin-off, Sento Yosei Shoujo Tasukete Maeve-chan, or Combat Fairy Help Me, Maeve-chan, featuring moe anthropomorphized forms of the fighter planes from the original. From here, you'll see a recurring theme in anything military-related eventually becoming moe. In 2006, the first volume of magazine MC Akushizu would release, focusing specifically on moe depictions of weapons. Although it doesn't exactly count as anthropomorphism, manga Magical Marine Pixel Maritan was released around the same time, featuring moe girls from all branches of the US military, including the Marine Corps, the Navy, and the Army, teaching Japanese readers vulgar English slang. In 2013, a little game that you may have heard of, but have certainly seen fan art for, released. That was, of course, Kankore, short for Kantai Collection, a browser game based on moe anthropomorphized forms of warships. Similarly, in 2017, Azure Lane released, following the same concept. Naturally, you'll notice just how much of moe anthropomorphism involves machines. Computers, guns, warships, CPUs. I think there are two reasons for this. For one, and this one is a no-brainer, there's a lot of overlap in interest. Most otaku, especially back in the day, were computer geeks as well. There's also a huge military otaku culture, making it a common overlapping interest as well. Second of all, I think it's human nature to anthropomorphize things like machines. If you're spending a lot of time tinkering with your computer, you're naturally going to build somewhat of a bond with it, even if those feelings can never be returned. Ships are given names and referred to with female pronouns in practice. It's worth an aside that not all anthropomorphism is moe, and there also exist works focusing on male characters aimed at a female audience. I'm sure we all know the famous Hetalia, a manga series turned anime focusing on depicting historical events through anthropomorphized characters. The main focus is the cast of male characters. Another Japanese browser game, Touken Ranbu, anthropomorphizes famous Japanese swords as ikemen, or handsome men. Hyperdimension Neptunia is a series of video games by Compile Heart and Idea Factory. The first game released in 2010. The series focuses on cute girls who represent CPUs, otherwise known as goddesses, who protect corresponding lands, each based on a specific video game console. In 2017, the anime Kemono Friends released, featuring anthropomorphized forms of animals as cute female characters. The anime became somewhat of a sensation, resulting in multiple events and collaborations. Since we're talking about Kemono Friends, I have to mention the story of Grape-kun, on the off chance you haven't already heard it. On the beginning of April 22nd of 2017, Kemono Friends would collaborate with Tobu Zoo. The collaboration would include special anime guides by the zookeepers, distribution of exclusive can badges, and most importantly of all, panel displays of the girls being placed in the enclosures of the corresponding animals they were based off of. In 1996, a penguin by the name of Grape-kun was born at Hamura Zoo in Tokyo. He got his name after the color of the ring that was placed on his wing for identification by staff. Grape-kun would later mate with another Humboldt penguin, Midori-chan, and the two would hatch a chick together after being transferred to the Tobu Zoo. However, the zoo would proceed to take the egg away, as to prevent possible inbreeding. The pair would never see their baby, Han-pen-kun, who would later end up mating with his foster mother. The experience would cause great pain for the couple. Despite penguins typically mating for life, as well as their decade of history together, Midori-chan would proceed to leave Grape-kun for a younger penguin, Denka-kun. While cheating usually results in rejection amongst penguins, in this case, Grape-kun's misfortune only grew. The rest of the penguins in the enclosure would also proceed to reject him, while accepting Midori-chan and her new mate, who would then proceed to hatch a chick who wouldn't be taken away this time. Grape-kun soon found himself completely isolated in the exhibit, surrounded only by those who had wronged him. Zookeepers would have to feed him themselves, as he refused to do so of his own volition. But things changed for Grape-kun once the promotional panel display of Hururu-chan, the Kemono-fan's gijinka of the Humboldt penguin, arrived. It was love at first sight, as Grape-kun would spend hours lovingly staring at Hururu-chan. Zookeepers would have to separate the two as they were afraid the Grape-kun would hurt himself trying to get her. Visitors and zookeepers alike were touched by the obvious love going on between the two, and Hururu-chan's voice actor would visit the pair as well. After the Kemono Friends collaboration officially ended, the zoo made the decision to keep the cutout of Hururu in the enclosure with Grape-kun. The love story between the two had taken off on the internet as well, and on October 9th of 2017, the zoo announced a festival honoring Grape-kun. But alas, tragedy was brewing beneath the surface. The next day, Grape-kun's health suddenly declined. He was rushed to the hospital but was unable to recover. On October 12th, it was announced that Grape-kun had passed, with his beloved Hururu-chan panel by his side at the hospital until the very end. A shrine was created in his honor, and Grape-kun was mourned far and wide, with zoo-goers bringing flowers and internet users creating fan art. In January of 2018, the Tobu Zoo placed a new panel in the Humboldt Penguin exhibit, this time depicting a happy Grape-kun and Hururu-chan, side by side. If you were around back then, you'll remember that the late 2010s was an interesting time to be an English-speaking anime fan. The culture was exploding in popularity, with even more quote-unquote normie types getting in on the action. The more self-indulgent aspects of the culture were embraced, but all under the veil of irony. While the word weeaboo was created to describe the most off-putting genre of anime fan, people started calling themselves weebs as a badge of ironic pride. They bought Dakimakura covers, ironically, and had waifu, ironically. The widespread embrace of anime culture went pretty hand-in-hand with meme culture becoming more mainstream. I remember seeing an emergence meme posted on some normie college meme page on Facebook with thousands of members. Just a few years prior, something like that would have been unthinkable. Likewise, anime girl anthropomorphism became more and more popular on the Western internet. While in the past, channers had created some works of their own, now they all had the veneer of being very viral attention-worthy. Wendy-chan, or Smug Wendy's, was created to depict the biting snark of the Wendy's Twitter account. Earth-chan depicts planet Earth, naturally, born from jokes about flat Earth. Tide Pod-chan builds off the meme of people wanting to eat Tide Pods. To this day, making whatever into an anime girl, be it an inanimate object, a meme, or a non-anime girl character, remains an immensely popular fan art trope. Now, this is the part where I get a bit pedantic on you. I haven't yet dropped a moe video, which I surely will sometime in the future. But myself and others agree that while the concept of cute anime girls has lost zero traction over the years, they aren't exactly moe. The 2000s had its own unique culture, much like every decade preceding it, as well as those following it. Moe does not unequivocally equal bishoujo, or cute, or whatever. But going back to what I originally said, moe is based on a feeling, which makes it very difficult to define. So I can't point to a certain year or series and say, this was the end of moe. At least not today in this video. But I personally don't find most of what came out in the 2010s, especially in the middle and later parts of the decade, to apply. But while the later characters I mentioned may not exactly be moe anthropomorphisms, they certainly build off the culture. In the end, the legacy of iMac Girl, of OS Tons, of everything that happened back on those old 2chan and Futaba channel threads, gave us a culture that persists to this day, across the seas and across the decades. Nowadays, turning something into an anime girl is a bit of a cliche, but it's also indicative of our roots as internet users. People were turning things into cute anime girls back then, and people are still turning things into cute anime girls now. Sometimes, some things never change.